Good morning, everybody. I am here to talk to you today about data centers. I often find when I've invited to these sorts of events with some researchers, scientists, individuals from those backgrounds doing exciting, innovative, market-leading, world-leading things, that I feel like something of an interloper, because ultimately the data center aspect of the IT stack isn't considered to be that exciting. However, it's becoming more and more important because if we want to achieve these bold and brave ambitions, we do need the infrastructure within the UK to support it. So before I go into my presentation, I'll just give you a brief understanding of what a data center company does. In effect, we go and acquire land. We then go to the planning department, get planning permission, build a data center, get large amounts of power from the local power companies, connect it to the data center building, and then create the data center building itself with some very expensive mechanical and electrical infrastructure. And then our customers move their IT infrastructure into the building. We work in a really odd, polar opposite environment, if you like. So our customers are high-tech companies, they're researchers, they're universities, they're research institutions. And we're dealing with, on the other end of the scale, local planners. We're dealing with the world of real estate and property, and also power companies. And those two are very, very different dynamics that we are working with to ensure that we can bring the infrastructure together to provide the platform for the important and critical research that's required within this country, and also to push our economy forward. So today, I'm going to be running through the following. AI has really created the next inflection point in our data center industry. The demand that we're witnessing is huge, and in doing so, it's putting a great deal of stress on the infrastructure within this country. It's also impacting the data center design. So the designs of what we've been doing traditionally, which is a building environment, we are building buildings, these are data centers, that is a data center, I should say, because of the AI infrastructure, because of the high power requirements and the demand for it, we're having to redo the designs that we've been working through over the last 10, 15 years. As with the UK, most things are London-centric. Everything over the last 20, 30 years from a data center perspective has been based in the southeast of the country. This can't continue, and I'll go through as to what we need to do to overcome that. And there is a threat, i.e. there's a chance that the infrastructure that we have in this country can't support the demand, but we see there's an opportunity to overcome that by working with the renewable energy schemes and underpinning their plans for the future. And then what do we need to do next? We have a suggestion how we can overcome the challenges by providing a UK-wide data center footprint, but we do need government intervention to help us achieve it. We're not asking for money, we're asking just for intervention on a planning approach which ensures that we can locate these data centers adjacent to power infrastructure and adjacent to future renewable energy projects. So I presented this at techUK last year. An exciting chart. The blue line at the bottom, sorry, I'll stay here. The blue line at the bottom depicts data center growth without the advent of AI. The green line depicts data center growth with AI. This is now 13 months old, and we now are in the midst of planning data centers for AI deployments. And what this means, kind of for context, we've been building, up until about a year ago, data centers to about 50 megawatts in this country. Bear in mind, each of your homes probably has half a kilowatt of power infrastructure to it. So that's a significant amount of power that's going into these buildings. To achieve that growth, we now need to be building data centers of around 150 megawatts, which I'm sure you can appreciate is going to put some significant stress on our power infrastructure within this country, something we need to work with the power companies to resolve. So the forecast was there 12 months ago, 13 months ago. We are now seeing this very much coming to a reality. So across the globe, AI demand is significant, and it's it needs to be housed in a location, it needs to be housed in a data center. So globally, the data center market is rocketing. And these are some statistics that we have, that the industry has pulled together over the last 6 months. America is the primary location of AI deployments and AI research. When you go abroad, when you travel, AI is the market leader, if you like. NVIDIA, as we all know, is the $3 trillion value company after 12 months ago being only $1 trillion. They are growing significantly. Their compute requires a great deal of power to be able to provide the outcome from the researchers utilizing it. EMEA is in third place to some extent when you look at it compared to APAC. I think, as you probably all will agree, that we live in the European geography itself, with all the environments that we struggle with, such as infrastructure. When you compare it to places like America, where it's so easy to build buildings, you can go to Texas and you can spin up a data center very easily and very quickly without planning. There's a great deal of power available. When you try and compete with that in Europe, it's very, very difficult because we have very regulated planning laws. Our power infrastructure is aged and it hasn't been invested in for many, many years now. So we are struggling a little bit to keep our head in the AI arms race. And if you talk to the likes of NVIDIA, they would say we're somewhere in third place or maybe fourth place of adoption of AI infrastructure when compared to other continents and other countries across the globe. What is happening within the data center design itself? So how is it impacting us? What are we having to evolve and what are we having to change? The power of the GPUs is probably 3 or 4 times that of the CPUs that we've been housing in our data centers over the last 15 years. To achieve that, to provide a suitable home for that, we're having to bring a great deal more power into the data center. The GPUs create a lot more heat, so we're now having to put direct liquid cooling into the servers to be able to cool the chipsets down. Traditionally, it would have been air running through the servers to provide that cooling solution. This brings with it its own challenges, a redesign of the infrastructure. Existing data centers that are around today aren't suitable for housing these GPUs, so they do need to be new buildings if we want to house this AI infrastructure. And then finally, the DC buildings itself. It's a building. It's not particularly exciting, but it is a building. The weight of the new hardware, combined with bringing liquid into the data halls, means that the floor loading of historical data center buildings isn't sufficient to house this kit. So the floor loading needs to increase. Therefore, we need to build new data centers to be able to provide that suitable home for it. This is the UK data center footprint. As you can see, most of the data centers are located in the southeast, but it kind of, as with the population spread across the country, you do see data centers in other geographies from up to Scotland, and then to some extent down to the southeast. What is interesting, though, is that over the last 10 years, we have seen most of, or 90% of the data center capacity all located in the west of London, driven by the cloud providers who are deploying their cloud region in the southeast of this country. What that's resulted in is that in the likes of Slough, Park Royal and Stockley Park, all the power infrastructure for the next 5 years has been sucked up into those data centers and there's no power available. When you compare ourselves to the likes of Spain, Germany and France, they have a much more distributed data center deployment with 2 or 3 regions when compared to our one only region. And the interesting point is that we actually have more megawatts of data center capacity than those other 3 individual countries. And we've managed to house it all of it in the west of London. However, we need to think about a new, more distributed approach. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to deploy the capacity within a suitable data center to be able to provide our researchers with access to the right compute to be able to do the work they do to ensure that we stay at the head of the research global game. A couple of countries have struggled with the significant rise in data center requirements. Much of this stuff is generally kept under the covers. The data center industry in itself has always been very shy of putting its head above the parapet, often driven by customers who tie us into contracts, which means we can't be public about any of the work we're doing for them. But as the industry is evolving and maturing, it becomes more and more tantamount that we do address the public opinion of data centers. It's critical that we do because they're becoming more and more prolific, and they're also providing really good opportunities. Data centers aren't evil. They are something that provides significant investment into local communities, and we need to educate the man on the street, the woman on the street about what we can do and how we can do it. In Ireland, 22% of the power in Ireland is consumed by data centers, which is a frightening figure when you think about it. the large cloud providers, the US, excuse me, large US cloud providers have located headquartered their EMEA offices in Ireland over the last 10, 15 years because of their corporation tax benefits, and they've also deployed a great deal of data centers in doing so. And they've done the same in Amsterdam. So if you were to have bought cloud services 10 years ago, it would have been operated out of those two geographies, not providing services to the people and businesses within those countries, providing it to the whole of EMEA. So Ireland has got 22% of its power currently being utilised by data centres. If it continues in this way and is unchecked, they will reach a figure of 35% by 2030, which again is frightening. And there's a great deal of uproar and upset within Ireland, and a lot of pitchforks going around, with people being disappointed and frustrated that the data centres are consuming all this energy and all this power. And there's a perception that the data centers are just housing TikTok, and therefore everyone's just watching cat videos. And that is not true. And because most of the data centers that we own and operate are actually housing AI or HPC clusters, which researchers are utilizing for creating innovative solutions for the future. So again, we need to educate the man and the women on the street about what benefits the data centers have. So what do we do next? How can we overcome the challenges that are ahead of us? As I mentioned before, we need to work with the government to come up with a UK-wide data centre plan, i.e. creating zones across the country which are data centre friendly, which are special data centre planning zones, which means that we can get moving on a data centre project quickly and swiftly without going through the process of having to educate the local planning authority, which can be very slow, very ponderous, and at times very challenging. We really need to look at locations which have availability of power. The southeast is very challenged with availability of power, and the upgrades are taking 5 to 10 years to be able to achieve it. The data center industry's consumption of energy is significant. We could work with renewable energy companies to ensure that we underpin their renewable energy schemes across the country by committing to all the electricity that they produce. So we can then build data centers alongside renewable energy developments, and in doing so, not burden the grid with the energy that we require for our customers' AI compute. And also, we can start to develop, as Lord Valence mentioned earlier, we can start to develop the small modular reactor opportunity. It's a realistic solution to be providing data center power rather than relying upon the grid. You may have seen in the press a few months ago that there's been some data center developments and schemes that have gone into planning that have been refused because they're on Greenbelt. In my view, I don't think there's any need to have data centers built on Greenbelt. There are many brownfield sites across the country that can more than facilitate data center demand and requirements, and we shouldn't be upsetting local communities by building data centers on there. Greenbelt, we don't need to. And also, as the industry starts to become more and more public, we would only vilify the industry if we start doing things of that nature. So I would suggest strongly that we don't pursue that avenue of opportunity. Distributing these facilities across the country to other regions is really important. In Slough, tens of billions of pounds has been spent on data centres, the physical data centre building, over the last 10 years. This is private investment. And then you have 4 times that value of the compute that goes into each of these buildings. So it would seem sensible to distribute those funds across various locations across the country rather than just holding it within the southeast. And additionally, many people say that AI will take jobs away from people today. I'm sure there's an element of truth of that. But what we're finding is that because of the AI demand, we need to recruit more and more people. We need to employ people who build buildings. And this is all the way through the professional team and the construction individuals that come on site to do what they do, which is about 1,000 people during the life cycle of a data center development. So we need more of those traditional trades to be able to keep up with the AI demand. So from our perspective, we argue that AI is actually creating more jobs for traditional roles than detracting from it. And then finally, to ensure that we maintain our position as a global research leader, we do desperately need to have this AI compute access within the country. If you go to China, if you go to the Middle East, you go to America, they are building AI factories. And this is huge amounts of compute, huge amounts of grunt that the researchers have access to be able to come up with the great, the fantastic market-leading research they're looking to deploy on a commercial basis in the future. So that's me. Thank you all very much.